they collectively would turn to Yahweh and humble themselves and pray and seek His face, He said He would hear from heaven and He would heal their land, because they are the descendants of the house of Israel predominantly, and they would receive the blessing. But yet they won't do that. It would be something different with a religious aspect that they have. And you know, America is famous for religious people having work ethics different from what the religion would teach, but they belong to that church, so they stay with that church, no matter what name it is, denomination. But their work ethics is different, and they get along accordingly. But the fire is going to melt the wax, is what he's saying here, and the waters are going to be poured down a steep place. Here's what he says in 5th verse, Micah 1:5. All this is for the disobedience of Yaakov. Now that is serious. The problems on this earth is for the disobedience of Israel. All the rest of the people are just victims of the circumstances. He says, and for the sins of the house of Israel, what is the disobedience of Yaakov? Is it its Shemaron? And what are the high places of Yehuda? Aren't they Jerusalem? The high places, that's the leadership, the rulership, the government. And all of this is for the disobedience of the government. Therefore, I will make Shemaron like a rubble heap of the field. Now, a rubble heap looks just like that scenario in Japan after the waters have seceded enough that everything is stable again. That's what it's going to look like, a rubble. He says, like places for planting vineyards. And I will pour down its stones into the valley, and I will uncover its fountains. Now this is metaphoric language for governments. This is what it's going to be like after it's over with. Powerful governments is going to be destroyed. There's going to be governments come up and governments go down, and it's going to be a confusion. And one of the reasons is the next verse. All her idols will be beaten to pieces. That is an accusation against us for the idols that our nation has adopted. And one of the biggest idol worship situations is the building of religious palaces. They call them churches. And all her temple gifts will be burned with fire. And you know, churches are a business. Most of them are in the land business. They buy land at cheap because they got cash money and they can lay it down and don't pay interest. They turn around and sell it, and the people can go to the bank and get mortgages for it, and then they can pay them off. And so the churches is legal to do that, because they're doing it as a non-profit work. But the problem with it is that they amount great wealth, and they build great temples. He says, and all her images I will destroy. For of the hire of the prostitute she has she gathered them, and to the hire of the prostitute shall they return. Now this is basically the way government works. They buy each other off. The laws that hurt the people under the guise of helping the people are the price of the prostitute. That's what they're saying. For this I will lament and wail. I will go stripped and naked. I will howl like the jackals and moan like the daughters of the owl. For her wounds are incurable, for it has come even to Yehuda. It reaches to the gate of my people, even to Jerusalem. See, they're not guiltless. They are guilty of all that's charged. Don't tell it in Gath. Don't weep at all at Bet La Ephra. I have rolled myself in the dust. Pass on, inhabitant of Sharif, in nakedness and shame. The inhabitant of Zanim won't come out. The wailing of Bet Etzel will take from you his protection. For the inhabitant of Morat waits anxiously for good, because evil has come down from Yahweh to the gate of Jerusalem. That is prophetic news to this world. The people cannot look back and see what happened to these nations because they're blind. They do not teach in school what we're talking about. They don't teach the Bible in school. Now they use it as a backdrop and turn the pages and recite some words, but they don't read the Bible. Because the doctrine of the academic world is to dispel the authority of Yahweh. This is a natural occurrence. This is a evolutionary theory, and this is all that goes along with it, and we are not supposed to be tied to a deity because we are above all that. We have intelligence. We got PhDs to prove it. That's the attitude of the world. But when Yahweh speaks back to them, he has to speak in language that they can understand, and that's bring them to poverty. He pleads the cause. He pleads the case. Verse 13, harness the chariot to the swift steed, inhabitant of Lachish. She was the beginning of sin. To the daughter of Zion, for the transgressions of Israel were found in you. Israel was shown the right way to go, and they followed evil. And so that's what is happening today. Yahweh, in the last great historical event that Yahweh has done that we can actually tie to Yahweh, was in 1776, inspired some men to revolt against England, the British Empire. And by 1787, we solidified a federal government that made men free the first time in history, and a semblance of freedom. And to prove it a historical fact, it started with 13 colonies. There's 13 houses of Israel. It matches. They were not all attuned to what knowledge that we have today, but Yahweh was bringing them along in their due course. But many of those men had a humility. George Washington had a humility. John Adams had a humility. And all of the other famous men that worked, Benjamin Franklin and all of them, and they had a desire for men to be free.